Okay, so the sizing now done on the two side pieces. I think it's time to now lay out the dovetails. So I'm just comparing, like I could like actually like on this side I just figured out that the difference is not as much as on the other side. So they are nearly like identical. So this side is just I can assume them as same. Otherwise, I would have actually marked the dovetails separately because they will slightly change. I will show the process how I do on each of those. So let me start with the right side. So I'll just pick this up. Right, this side is plain. Again, by the way, I have not cut this to length yet because these will be slightly longer. So eventually, I'm going to measure off of this thing and cut it at the very end, so I don't need to do that now. Yeah, for dovetails, like we follow that same process. So the same process, maybe I've shown this earlier on the maybe on the dovetail box project. Not sure if I showed that on this project also. Let me get some of my pencils sharpened. I'll be having like 3 dovetails. My idea is that I want to mark the center of the pins. So obviously I know that the center of the last pin would be like an eighth of an inch from the end. So before that, what I will do, like I will draw a couple of parallel lines, like eighth of an inch from the end, because I am going for full size pins. So I set my gauge to eighth. So half of my pin size. I set at approximately like some distance, so that the idea is that I want to divide this length into 3 divisible part, like. So let me lay out this thing. So probably I will have to take it 6. So 6 comes around here. So let me put a line here, eighth of an inch. Since I'm here, I will mark this also. Like this is the center of the end pins. I don't need to mark, but just for the process. So now I have, this is what I did. Like 1/8 of an inch line here and here. Idea is that I want to divide the distance between those into a something divisible by 3, because I need 3 dovetails. So I put my ruler here. I can also burn an inch, and so that it's more accurate. That's what we tend to do normally. So I'm choosing 6 as the number. So I have divided into like between this line to the other line, like oh, it should be 7 then, because I am burning 1 inch. So here now at every 2 inch distance, that's it. So to mark, so if the idea is that now if I extend these lines here, they will be the center of the 2 pins at the middle. So that's the idea. So I could just use the finger gauge like this and mark it here. That would be fairly accurate. Here I am just measuring to that point, and yeah, now I will just use this so that I am more accurate. So this is the center of the first pin. Now I take my ruler again. Eighth on either side. Now this should be, the accuracy should be better, that's what I mean. Now I can just put it and use my dovetail template to mark the angles. Yeah, I'll use my trusted handmade 7 ratio this thing. So let me mark the vertical or the these ones at the top, like the right angles. Okay, so lines at the top. Now I can also, while I'm at it, I will just mark the angles. So these dovetail angles are done. Now, when I was working on the other drawer, since the discrepancy was more, I didn't just use that to transfer the measurement. I again did the same on the other side. But in this case, I am like fairly these are like fairly close, like they are almost aligning. So I will just transfer one marking to the other in the for efficiency. I'll keep one aside. Now I have marked the angles, but what is the length of my dovetails? These are going to be half lap dovetails, and in principle I want to keep this, like, once I have the arc and everything, 7 by 8 inch thick on the sides. So this is, I started with 5 by 8 in stock, around that. So I want to keep the dovetail length 5 by 8, so that there is like there is an additional quarter of an inch on the top. So I will assume that. So how do I mark the 5 by 8 inch line? Instead of measuring, I know this is 5 by 8 inch stock, I'll just put this one and go for it. Yeah. Putting my ruler, putting my combination square on my reference. These are nothing special about, like nothing different about that. The dovetails are always special. Nothing different about it, like as far as the angle is concerned. But when we go to the pins, we'll come to know the complexities. By the way, I'm not sure if I have told this earlier in my other dovetails. I always like this side, like the side facing me is the face side. The reason being, I always use like Western saws, so they cut on the push stroke. So any like torn grain or like whatever, like we call that flare out or whatever, that is on the other side, if at all any. So that's the idea. Okay. I'll just mark it on top of that pencil. So I have I'm using ash. I have used this before. Very tenacious wood, very strong. I mean, they use it for making chisel and handles and hammers, all those things. So like it's not too difficult to work with. Yes, you need sharp tools, little bit like more effort. But I have not found that the grain is like unreliable or anything. Or maybe I just found the better boards. I may have been lucky, but yeah, that usually it has been good. If I compare that with Supili, Supili has been either very good or some sections have been so notorious there. Like, I don't know why. Like, just find like an end grain, like somewhere in between, like good grain or like contrary grain suddenly popping up somewhere. Okay, so I will start with like taking out the middle section. I can take the edges first and then the middle, or the other way, it doesn't matter actually. Maybe the first part, initial part, I can go with a slightly wider chisel, but eventually I will use the 1/4 inch chisel. This too thin for now. Keep the bench top clean. I mean, my bench is not the cleanest, but at least the bench top when we are chopping these uh, dovetails, because any loose debris might cause a dent. So usual thing that I follow these days is start with like a hammer tap slightly away, like a 16th of an inch or so, and then I go right up against the wall. So that prevents or minimizes any shifting of the knife wall in the initial blows. The only disadvantage of that approach for me is that like sometimes after that I cannot find my original knife wall. So try to little bit further than maybe a 32nd of an inch, maybe 16th. So immediately that the angle is coming like too steep for this. Basically this chisel seems to be wider, so I will have to use the 1/4 inch chisel after this. I can still chop with this chisel till the end. I'll use the thinner chisel, and this is quite tenacious, so let me use the hammer. I mean, I could use I have better control if I just use my weight. But hammer works just fine. It's not a... You don't have to use like one or the other. Maybe this way you get a better feedback, I think, of what the grain is doing and not. I'll choke up on the chisel. I feel like it is getting close. I'm not trying to hurry, but I'm trying to prepare myself for this thing. That actually broke off one side, so definitely it's going to come off now. Now I can take off this the end pieces. So I clamp it this way because this is my good side. I feel comfortable with this, just to make the knife mark. But this is my face side, so I want to be sawing from that side. So I'll turn it around my dovetail saw and then saw from this end. This side is my good side, so I can just saw from this side also. Yeah, the dovetails are almost done. Little bit of cleanup, or like clean up those little fuzzy bits on the top. This is done. Just trying to make the corner crisp. That will help me get a crisp transfer of like marking on the for the pins. Now clean up on the middle part. They look pretty clean. Usually there is a hump on the center. Because I started my chopping from the wall, so these two walls would be perfect. So I register against that and try to see if there is a hump at the center. I don't intend to undercut there. In theory, if you undercut a little bit, it's not going to matter, but if you want to build the skills and accuracy, muscle memory, I think you don't need to undercut. So yeah, now my dovetails marks are done. Herein comes the challenge. I will tell like what I did wrong in my first attempt. Here is the thing. So this is now going to be perpendicular here to this part, but I do need to account for that here. Like basically like this part needs to be perpendicular so that this can register it at a right angle. Good that I recollected just now. So what we do for that is I first mark the depth here with a pencil. I first mark with a pencil. Now let me remove the blue tape. I have to do it again because this is now going to impact my some more layouts to do, by the way. That's what I mean. So I register my square against the end at 90 degrees, and then I can use pencil, sharp pencil, to mark these. Barely visible, but that's what is important. Same thing on this side. Register like here, ever so slightly, like a small angle. Not sure how much of it is visible. So now I did this small angle I need to join. Let me do that. So what I'm going to use that for is like I have to plane this side. So I clamp it in this way. I go to reach till that line, and then it's such a like a very small angle, it's hard to measure, but what I do to ensure I am near about that mark is ideally, like if I have like, because I have planed this part a little bit like at a very shallow angle, this should be 90 degree. That's what I'm going to check. Looks pretty good to me, and if my planing is accurate, then this should be also 90. Oh, I have to register against the bottom. This is fairly accurate, maybe a one swipe on this side. I'm not going to fiddle with too much because this angle is 90 degree. But then when I come to the other side, we'll do the same thing, but let me use a knife mark this time. I'll tell you why we need that. You can start with a pencil though. This is a very important step. Glad I was able to recollect before I started cutting my pins. This side is slightly difficult because the angle is like I cannot plane this part. That's why, like, planing is usually the easier. I mark that angle, which is like, I'm absolutely sure nothing would be visible on camera because I can barely see it, thanks to my choice of wood. I'll do the same on this side also. It's like a small angled rebate. So I think the pencil is not helping. So definitely I can't plane this because the angle is going this way inside. So I'll start with my chisel. So instead of directly putting it in the against the knife against that mark, if I start like hammering, the bevel may take it like angle. The may take the angle steeper. So I go halfway, relieve a little bit of it. Now I go against that wall or that knife mark. So actually before that, I'm forgetting some of the steps. Let me establish this. Now I'm trying to check. This depth is not too much, but I will still go ahead and saw that because I could take a few knife passes also and get to that depth. Now I had chopped a little bit from this side. I will do the same from the other side. So start a little bit away. Just a relief. I just use those two sides as my to register my chisel against. So first I clean that up a little bit. I use that as the registration to the best of my ability. Use that angle to slowly take the to be more accurate. I will come from both sides here. try to be as accurate as possible. I know it's the most difficult part. It's very difficult to be accurate on this one, at least I found it that way. So I feel like I did fairly good there. Maybe a little bit more material on this side. Let me see if it is like pair cut from this end is easier, or don't want to take more than I need to. That's it. I'll leave it at that. Don't want to fiddle with it too much. Now I go back to my this side. I was working on laying out the. I have to do the same thing, marking all over again. So let me bring my blue tape. No doubt, this is one of the most, probably the most complicated dovetail I had to do. But lot of learning there. And these are lessons you learn and keep for the rest of your life, because you can adapt these techniques to like newer projects or things like that. Just using that hammer taps to adjust it to the right place. This is pretty good. Same thing, I'm marking again. Hopefully I haven't forgotten anything else. Okay, these marks are done. Now this dovetail goes like a slightly tricky to mark, but possible. Single knife mark there, checking which is the bottom side. I will just make a mark like almost like midway. Center to center. Then I have to mark the perpendicular lines. I could use my dovetail template, but I'm just using this as I have this at hand. Now we'll just clamp it this way to saw these, make my initial saw curves. Well away from the line, 1/16 of an inch, because I have to use my chisel to get to depth or like pair cut to my final mark. So why there's no point, like I'm never going to get this straight out of saw. So okay. Trying to find a good chisel size for this. Now one more thing we have to account for here, which I again made a mistake on the initial thing. See, the angle is like instead of perpendicular it is this way, right? So my pins are going to, like, instead of like sitting like perpendicular, they are going to sit this way. So if they are going to sit this way, these walls are not going to be perpendicular. I have to keep that in mind, so that if I make it perpendicular, the angles will not align properly. And that also means that when I'm chopping into this, like instead of perpendicular, I have to chop inside, so that instead of this way, they go this way. So slightly going inside, that's what I mean. And that angle is not too much. As long as you don't forget about those angles, I think that's there is always opportunity to adjust that. That's what I mean. Like, but if you completely ignore and start working everything at right angles, it's not going to work. Like, the dovetails will come out beautiful and fine, they will just not fit nice, and we don't want that. I will just use this. Let me take a thinner chisel, like one of the. Use this one. Instead of clamping in and out, I will just chop from here. More efficient or quicker, I mean. Now, preferably, I don't want to be doing this on like this kind of support. I should be putting it on my bench. I'm slightly leaning, like if at the end I have to still pare down a little bit or micro adjust, I can do. But I'm trying to just be conscious of that angle so that I don't have to do too many adjustments at the very end. I'm just chopping it this way like for the initial part, but this is a half lap dovetail, so I can just take the material out at the end, which I will do that like soon. Just the initial depth, it just seems like this is more efficient what I'm doing. So what I meant was that I don't need to be chopping it that way. It's not a through dovetail, so I can just angle it this way. And this is much more rapid. Always take the center part first. That acts as a relief, and then the edges. You can go actually vertically, and at the end you can pare down the last part at the end at that angle that we need. That works too. Let me clamp it vertically because normally I find that easier for me to align my chisel. It may be a good idea to use even thinner chisel because that helps relieve the center part better, but this one seems to be working fine. Let me little bit at a time. Maybe sometimes I'm getting a little bit greedy, maybe. But at the end it is just working fine. This one was a bigger chunk, so I just split that. I'm going vertical right now, but soon I have to, at the end, I have to make sure this angle is like slightly. Let me use a slightly narrower chisel. And start like accounting for that angle a little bit when I'm doing this. Now what I will do is like I will start to pare down these walls again, trying to split the and slowly tap, because the grain may take you in the wrong direction, especially when we're dealing with this species. It's now working just fine. That side is done. Same on this side. If there is too much resistance, I don't beat down on it. I have to create that relief and still trying to split the distance. Here, see the end grain, this thing is not really behaving properly. There was like a for the final cleanup, I just take the wider chisel, just more registration surface, and I hope that was enough to clean. Now I may have got that angle right, or there may be a little bit more to take. I can check that using my square again. There's some cleanup to do. I'm not able to register it fully. I have to use the 1/4 inch chisel because I could not get into that corner. Now I take my square again just to see. I should be around that 90-degree ballpark, like registering against that edge. If not, so I had accounted for the angle, but I just did it too much, because remember that angle is not much quite shallow, so seems fine. At the base there is still a little bit more. I'll leave it at that. I'll see how it fits. We'll work on the next one more. Definitely much more time taking than a through dovetail, and especially in this situation. Trying to get the corners crisp because those things will hold up the joint. There's a little bit of that's the bottom part, this is the bottom part, so it goes this way. Doesn't seem to be starting off, which means it is tighter, but I do the same thing. I take the corners off from the bottom side of the dovetail without touching the outer side. The idea is not to thin it down or anything. I will not keep on doing this. The idea is that it gets a start. So it got a start. Start with some, I feel like how this is feeling. See, this side, the edge is like way too tight, especially these sides. I don't want it too tight because this thing will break off easily. I still have some leeway on this side because this is thicker. So I see now where I may have I'm not starting to thin it down or anything because I see like I'm almost at the knife wall at all the places. So I was a little bit surprised why it didn't go in. And once it gets a start and then it let's say like it gets tighter, that means my walls are not perpendicular, but I expect to get a decent start. Like if it still doesn't start, maybe these front walls are maybe not properly set maybe. I'm tapping a little bit to see like it feels good, but a little bit tighter than I would normally hope for. I think something here like these walls are holding off. because if there is like the angle is too steep, then it would be pushing the dovetails out. Seems like this side is going just fine. Middle one is very tight, which is still okay. The edge, this one I don't want it super tight. Trying to see the like any signs of like bruising or anything. Has to be these walls. As I said, I overcompensated those walls. The angle was like need to go this way. This one is going very nice. The edges are going fine. Now what I will do, I'll remove the blue tape, because sometimes like if it starts to split or anything, this is going to mask that. I don't want it. If I can feel any crack or anything, I want to see that so that I can stop before it gets any worse. It's all good now. The center one like seemed too tight. The center is still too tight. This side is perfect. This side is could be a little bit looser, but I will take that. I'm just trying to relieve it a little bit more. I don't want it to crack or anything. But I do want to address why that center one is taking. Wow. I mean, I wanted it slightly looser than this, not this tight. But let me see how I got the angle. Where is my bevel gauge? I hope like I have not shifted this angle. No, the angle is too steep. Perfect. I don't want to alter anything on this. I'm happy with that. It's just, I think, little bit even tighter than I wanted. So I will leave it at that. So this side is done. I'll have to work on the other side, and then we'll work on the the drawer back, which would be a dado joint, housing dado. In fact, it's a straight dado joint. Okay. See you next time.